But I first want to start with talking about the why video and your why for doing this program. And before we kind of get into it, right, I wanted to share a story, right? And this story is about a guy named Terry Fox. Now, this name might ring a bell because he's pretty famous in Canada. He's one of the most famous Canadians there is, and he doesn't even play hockey, which tells you a lot about him, right? He even has a coin, right? One of their coins in Canada has his face on it. But in 1977, he was 18 years old, and he finds out that he has this rare type of bone cancer, and it's growing in his right leg. And so he spends a lot of time in the children's hospital, and eventually they come to the decision that they need to amputate his right leg. So they cut it off at the hip, they give him a prosthetic, and they tell him he's cancer-free. But he was so affected by that time spent in the hospital watching all these children, right, that were so much younger than him suffer from this crazy, terrible disease that he decided that he was going to take some action, he was going to do something about it. So he cooks up this crazy idea that what he's going to do is he's going to run from the Atlantic Ocean, right, from the one border of Canada on the Atlantic side, all the way across to the Pacific Ocean onto the other side of Canada, and he convinces the Canadian Cancer Society to back him, right, and they're going to raise money for this cause, right, to help cure cancer, and specifically for the kids. And in April, he does it, right? So April 12th, 1980, he spends all this time training, right? He's learning how to run with this prosthetic leg. And remember, this is the 80s, so they don't have prosthetic limbs like they do now, right? So he's kind of hobbling when he ends up doing this run, and he starts his marathon of hope. And he dips his leg on April 12th into the Atlantic Ocean, his prosthetic leg, and he starts running. And what he ends up doing is every day for 143 days, he averages a marathon. So he runs, he wakes up at the break of dawn at about 4:30 a.m. He gets out of the van that he's traveling around, right, Canada with a couple of guys in this van, and he runs. And he doesn't stop running until the sun goes down. 26 miles he averaged every day, a full marathon. And he didn't take any breaks. He didn't stop. There was no rest in between. He went 143 days consecutively. And if you watch the 30 for 30 documentary, which I highly recommend you do, it's amazing, he didn't feel like it, right? There was a time when he was doing these things that he didn't want to do it anymore, where his leg was rubbed so raw from the prosthetic that he was in so much pain to continue running, but he kept going because he had a big why, right? Despite everything else, the why he was doing it was more important to him than all the other factors combined. Now, the story is kind of sad because he doesn't end up finishing it. He ends up passing away and succumbing because the cancer ended up spreading. But the Marathon from Hope, to this day, is one of the biggest races in Canada. And I know I heard about the story a long time ago. It's raised $400 million then, so it's got to have raised so much more money now. But the reason why I'm telling you this is his why was so big that the how was secondary, that the how just happened to happen. He figured it out because the why drove him to do so. And this is why I want you guys to create this video, right? I want you to create a video. You can pop it up, get some good lighting by the window. And I want you to tell yourself why you've decided to take on these 21 days. And just beyond weight loss, beyond I want to fit in some clothes, those are great goals, right? But what's the real reason? Like deep down, what is it that you're after? Why is being healthier, being fitter, right, feeling better in your own skin going to make a huge impact on your life that you're willing to take 21 days of me, right, 21 days of sweating, 21 days of, really focusing in and maybe not doing a whole bunch of stuff that is the most comfortable, right? Why? And if you can do that, if you can come down with a big enough why, right, the how happens. Because I promise you, at some point during this, you're not going to feel like it anymore. And a lot of times, that's the point that has stopped us from making the changes that we want to, right? We stopped feeling like it, so we stopped kind of taking action, or we got frustrated because we weren't seeing the changes we wanted to see right away, and we gave up, and we got into that cycle of start and stop and start and stop and feeling like a failure. But I don't want you to do that anymore because I want you to actually tap into that real why and to actually make the change. Because every day, well, not every day, but every week we're going to come back to that video and I'm going to remind you, right? Remind you why. Why are you doing this? Because you're not always going to feel like it, right? Motivation comes and it goes. But if you can figure out what the reason is, the real reason, it's easier to stay consistent with those actions that aren't always fun, that you don't always feel like doing, but you do anyway because that why is big enough to propel you. So hopefully you guys enjoy that story. Hopefully that kind of sparked you, right, to have the courage, to have that conversation, to watch yourself in the video and record this video for real. And I would love it if you would share it, right, if you have enough courage, which remember, this is a small group. This is only us. We're all in it together. So please share your video, if not with me, but with the group, right? And if you don't want to share your video, maybe write down what the why is that you found out underneath this in the comments so that we can all be in this together, right? Because that's the second piece, right? You need support and you need a team. Terry Fox had his brother and a friend and another guy in a van. They didn't always get along, but they all were on the same mission, and together they made a huge impact on the world and on Canada and on us. So hopefully you guys are inspired to do that now. If you thought maybe I'm just not going to do it, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your why is and seeing you at the end of these 21 days.